Hello once again from the Prim Reaper. This is not a video I wanted to write. This is not a topic I wanted to engage with again. But I gotta be honest with you, the resentment and frustration I've been feeling over the last few months has been slowly building and building, watching the continued negative engagement I've been seeing with my black pill video from a while back. I've been doing a lot of thinking about it, and being quite candid, planning this response has been a bit of an emotional roller coaster. I've been all manner of sad and angry and incredulous going through it all, and I'm sure that parts of all that will come out in this video. Regardless, I think there are a number of things that need to be said, even if just to get it off my chest. First, what might come as a surprise to some people, I'm going to start with an apology. I reread the original script for the first video, and as much as I thought I was trying to be thorough, I realized that I let a lot of my previous work in my channel do a lot of the heavy lifting for the message I was trying to get across. To elaborate, I can see how people who discovered my channel through the black pill video alone could be forgiven for thinking that I was being flippant or dismissive in some elements of what I was saying. I kept a lot of the emotional elements a little more surface level than I normally might in the interests of time, and I think that led to a lot of misunderstanding and assumptions. Let me give a few examples. When I talked about the black pill being akin to giving oneself permission to give up on life without having to engage in any hard work or self-reflection, I know what I meant to say, but I can see how it might have come across in that video, so I apologize about that genuinely. Many people who have gotten to black pill stage have indeed gotten there after considerable effort and repeated failures. Furthermore, when I talked about things that can lead to a black pill mindset, I again kept it rather surface level and focused on broader issues like political divides and costs of living, and didn't really zoom in on a lot of those more specific individual causes. Once more, I know how I intended this. I was just trying to give a brief overview to more quickly get to challenging the mindset. But I now see it just looked as though I was misunderstanding and possibly even minimizing many people's fundamental and deeply personal experiences. I think I take for granted sometimes that my audience is familiar with my previous videos or my work with men, and I think that obviously hindered my message in that video. Another thing I briefly want to address is that there doesn't necessarily seem to be a cohesive use of the phrase black-pilled by many folks. Some people are using it to refer to one specific domain of life. Some people are using it in a more philosophical sense, talking about the futility of existence. And then some people are using it as a general overarching hopelessness and giving up on life. To be clear, it's this latter category that I criticize as being most damaging. If people are talking about the black pill giving them a sense of calm or peace or acceptance about their situation, that's not really the same use of the word that I often see, which speaks of bleakness and hopelessness about life. So I just wanted to clear that up, as I think that was really contributing to the misunderstandings I was talking about. I'll go into a bit more detail later on. In any event, this video is not all mea culpas. Where I really start to get my dander up is the claims that I don't understand, or even can't understand, what it's like for some of these people. Because I do understand. I understand on multiple levels. First of all, I hope it comes as no surprise that someone who used to look like this, and who used to have all the charisma of a plank of wood, would know a thing or two about being alone and being rejected by others. In my 10th and 11th grade, I made so many critical social errors that you'd think I was going for some sort of idiot speed run on how quickly I could alienate anyone I'd ever considered a friend. For a time, I was the person that people would make random jeers at when they walked past me in the hallway. I wrote stories about people I wished were my friends in lieu of real socialization for a while. I did this, I shit you not, alone in the band room of my school. It was a pretty sad case. Far be it from me to say I was just a poor, pitiful victim of bad circumstances, or that everyone around me was just being mean and nasty for no reason. I grew up in an abusive situation where I didn't get a lot of support, positive mentorship, or a good model for socialization at home. So I was capable of being a socially unaware asshole with others, and boy howdy did I learn a few unpleasant lessons as a result. There were a few times where I legitimately feared no one would ever like me again. But as I got older, I learned. I stopped wallowing in self pity. I learned what to avoid. I worked on practicing socializing in new social settings, something that took years of effort and many mistakes. I tried new activities in life, and eventually, I found my stride. I know that there will still be people who say that I don't understand because I eventually got out of it, or because as a woman, dating is easier. And while I absolutely don't want to minimize that element of it, because it's certainly true, I do encourage you to think about this not from my perspective now, but from this version of me's perspective. Because I tell you, I did not have men, or anyone else for that matter, falling down at my feet for this version of me, and I did have to make a lot of changes to see any positive social results. My life was absolutely not always on easy mode, and you can imagine this might have continued had I kept up with the same awful behavior from my teen years and become some kind of blue-haired feminist or something. It is possible to make drastic changes to one's appearance, one's personality, one's mannerisms, one's hobbies, one's social settings, and see positive results. Now, on the other hand, it's also possible to try changing all of these things and see no results, as many folks in my comments have said. Many people were accusing me of not understanding, or even not being capable of understanding. And again, they're wrong. I do understand it. I've talked to people who have experienced that very thing, and it's heartbreaking. I have seen how repeated social failures lead to an absolutely crippled sense of self-confidence and fills one with a sense of self-loathing. I want nothing other than to reach into these guys' lives and make things better for them, because I often see many wonderful things about them that they can no longer see themselves. A sense of humor buried under social phobia, a profound desire for important social changes hidden beneath shyness and isolation, beautiful talents and interests that often go unnoticed. I've seen some clients overcome their social challenges and find success. I've seen others struggle to do the same thing. And I feel so terrible for that latter category because I've never met a client that I didn't think wouldn't thrive under the right conditions. It's painful for me to see so many of you in the comments talking about how life is hopeless for you because you think you're unattractive or because you're too short or whatever other reasons people may come up with. Not only because I know how some people are capable of treating you for those reasons, but also because I'm sure there are many other wonderful things about you that are being buried beneath these things. Talents, passions, potential social skills. But let me tell you right now, you are not going to see improvements by becoming embittered and negative and insulting people you feel are doing better than you. I can understand very much where these attitudes come from, and I can even empathize with the pain that causes these attitudes to form. But these attitudes are not going to improve your outcomes, and it's this I intended to criticize when I talked in my last video about taking the black pill. Several people have commented to tell me that their version of taking the black pill is in simply coming to accept that they may never find a romantic relationship, or that they are responding to general attitudes about men in society, or that they find it freeing to release themselves from trying to swim against the current of societal expectations. And I can get it. I know how hard these things are for people because, like I said, I work with people going through these very things. I hate how society treats men. I hate how men who are not within the upper echelons of appearances are often treated like second-class citizens. I hate this, and I fight it as much as I can. But despite understanding, I can say with absolute certainty that using this treatment as an excuse to take on a bitter, hateful attitude towards others is not a path out of problems. It's how one becomes entrenched in them. It's how one becomes further isolated, further denigrated and insulted by others, further regarded negatively, which then makes it all the harder to be able to socialize. Let me give an example. You can have two people who are equally short, equally unattractive, which is a term I hate to use because many people who categorize themselves as unattractive are actually perfectly fine, and who each have social anxiety and difficulty putting themselves out there. They may both have had multiple social rejections, and neither has had any luck in finding romantic partnerships. If one of these men decides to keep putting himself out there, to work to avoid taking social failures personally and keep practicing all the same, to try different hobbies, to try volunteering in his community, to have a sense of humor about his perceived physical limitations, which again I loathe to see as physical limitations, but I'm not the rest of society, he may have some luck. He may be able to make friends, find something he enjoys doing, find something that adds meaning to his life, to come to see value in himself, and may, or may not, manage to eventually find a partner. But if the other man in my example decides to become embittered, to become negative, to lash out against others, to insult people he perceives are doing better than him, to make accusations against random women that you're getting the world you wished for, or other assumptions about women's beliefs or experiences, to putter in his nest doing nothing but comparably mindless activities such as watching shows, playing video games, and doom scrolling. Don't mistake me, each of these is fine in moderation, but I'm talking doing nothing else. And to otherwise just give up that anything will ever change or improve in any way, well, unfortunately, he's probably right. The reason I give two people in the same starting position here is to attempt to better illustrate what I'm trying to say. When you are in a difficult position, no matter how painful or hopeless or seemingly impossible that position may be, one has effectively two options. 1. Do nothing. Give up. Stop trying. Or 2. Do literally anything else. I believe there are very few truly hopeless cases out there. Even a 0.1% chance of improving one's life is better than a 0% chance. A chance at improving one's life in even one domain, even if it is not necessarily the romantic domain, is better than no chance at improving anything. I understand that some people eventually get to a point where they feel like giving up is less painful in the end than continuing to keep trying and risk further rejection. But I firmly believe that if someone gets to that point, then they forego the right to attack others for the state of their own life going forward. I know that there are likely many awful things that happen to a person on the way to that state of mind. And seriously, as I've said multiple times, shame on society for fostering a lot of these awful attitudes and ways of relating. But the moment one completely gives up, that is a personal choice. Anyway, there's one more domain I wanted to talk about in a bit more detail regarding the you don't or can't understand crowd. I mean, honestly, imagine telling someone who actively advocates for men's issues, in the public eye no less, that they don't understand what it's like to fight a losing battle. Imagine telling someone who tries to persuade people that men are worth caring about, that men deserve compassion, that men are worthy as ends in themselves, that they don't know what it's like to be treated like you're doing something wrong just for trying to talk to people. Imagine telling someone who regularly tries to advocate for funding and attention for resources that help men that they don't know what it's like to be rejected time and time again. Seriously, this is one of the points on which I get emotional. Because on the one hand, eat shit for making stupid assumptions just based on someone's sex, especially when you lot bitch your face right off the moment that any woman does the same thing to you. But on the other hand, Christ, do I understand and empathize with your plight, because it is demoralizing. It is terrible regularly facing the cold shoulder of indifference that society often presents to you guys. If you want to accuse me of not understanding something, it's that I don't understand how something that is so self-evident to me, that men are people too and deserve to be treated with equal care to women, is so seemingly verboten to so many others. Fuck's sakes. But with this being said, I don't care how much of a seemingly endless downwards moving escalator it is to fight for men's issues. The one thing I will not do is give up. You know why? Well, first of all, because this is too important, and there are too many men being affected by negative societal attitudes to not fight against it, and to do so publicly. But second of all, because no matter how hard the current pushes against us, we are gaining ground. A few years ago, back in 2021, the Canadian Centre for Men and Families in Toronto opened Canada's first domestic abuse shelter for men and their children. Now, on November 1st, we will be opening a second one here in Calgary. This is huge. One of the things that inspired me to really dedicate my work to men's issues in the first place was way back when I worked for 211, the information and resource line, and noticed how few resources there were available for men in this situation. Being a part of the team involved in creating such a resource is a dream of mine, and I'm hoping that if this shelter is as much as a success as the one in Toronto, more people will begin taking the cause seriously. It's not a huge win, but it's a win. And like I already said, 0.1% chance of improving things is better than zero. Anyway, I'm going to close this video out here. This is going to be the last I will touch on this subject, but there were just a few things I wanted to clear up, and I felt like this was a more productive way to do it than trying to respond to comments, especially when it was thoroughly clear that many of the people were not arguing in good faith. In the interest of literally putting my money where my mouth is, I will be donating a larger portion of the proceeds from this video towards the shelter operations. No pressure on anyone else, but if you also want to throw a few coins at what once seemed like a hopeless cause, I'll leave the link in the low bar. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.